this evening. Of course, I wish we had gathered under a little different circumstances, but we're going to go through some things tonight. The sheriff's going to be here. He's going to go through some of the investigation. We're going to talk about some security issues, and then we'll open it up for questions. But let's get started. I want to assure you that my staff's number one responsibility is safety and security of our kids. That's the utmost number one importance. And I will share with you shortly in a few minutes a lot of the security things that we have done over the last 2 years, things that we're currently doing, and things that we're planning on doing. But before we get into all that, I'd like to turn it over to our sheriff and let him just talk to you about the incident and some things going on there. I do want to thank our sheriff and the entire sheriff's office. We have a great relationship with him and with his officers. I can assure you that we get, as a school system, so many resources that most school systems never get from their sheriff. If we need an investigation, if we have something that's happening, we have an entire criminal investigation unit helping us. So, I mean, there's numerous times, and right at the moment, and I'll share with you, one of the things we are going to do is we're going to go from, we're adding one more school resource officer, so we have a school resource officer at every school. But until we get to that point, he's picking all that up through overtime with his own officers. So, I mean, there are so many things that we get because of our relationship with each other that is a benefit to our students, and our staff, and our community. So on a personal note, I want to thank his office and him personally for his commitment for our school system and for our students. Sheriff?
Thank you, Dr. Wilson, and just want to echo what he said. I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I know it's a Thursday evening, but honestly, I can't think of anything that is any more important to us and our community than our children. I think that's why this situation is kind of taking us all by surprise and kind of got us all fired up, if you will, about what happened here last week. And after the incident happened, I was obviously taken back by what had happened, that we actually had a sex offender in our school, and it had wandered the halls here for a few minutes, and we didn't know it until after he was off the campus. I watched as the office done the investigation, and was very pleased that the arrest was made very quickly, and that we had this guy in custody, and he had a new address located over at 2985 Camp Road. As the weekend progressed, this happened on a Friday, as the weekend progressed, I, like many of you, took to social media, not to post, but to read a lot of things that were being said. I really am not a fan of social media, but as sheriff, I think it's my job to monitor and see what's going on. And I read a lot of the posts that was out there, and a lot of the concerns that probably a lot of you had. And I was very disturbed, not necessarily what you were saying, but what your concerns were, and what did we fail to do to provide the correct information as far as what happened, and what can we do to better, but how can we get the information out better? So some of those concerns will be answered in the future quickly. But what I'd like to do tonight is just kind of go through, and I want to give you exact details as to what happened on Friday, and go through this. And then we want to talk to you, like Carlson said, about some issues and things that we've done, some things that we've identified from this incident, as well as some things that we've been working on for some time. But just to jump into this, on March the 22nd, 2019, around 9:13 hours, Deputy Childers, can you raise your hand back to the Deputy Childers was assigned as our SRO here at Tate. Many of you know that she was at that time working between Tate and Harmony Elementary. Luckily, that particular day, she was assigned and was working here at Tate. So Deputy Childers overheard one of the employees here at Tate talking to someone directly outside of this auditorium next to the office area, and asked what they were doing, and asked them how they got in. This guy responded and said he was looking for a janitorial work, and he had actually came in at the end of the hall next to the cafeteria, as he pointed towards the end of the hallway down here. This employee actually escorted Mr. Daniel into the office where Deputy Childers instructed him he had to sign in as a guest, and took his driver's license and made a copy of his driver's license. She went on to talk to him about what he was doing here at the school. Again, he said he was looking for janitorial work and he wanted to apply for a job. She explained to him that he could not apply for a job here, that we contracted through ABM, and how he needed to go about getting a job. After talking to him a short time, she and the other employee escorted him out of the building, but before doing so, had him show them where he had came into the building. So they walked towards the end of the hall next to the cafeteria, walked out towards the double doors, and where he explained that he had walked through one of the doors. Deputy Childers escorted him out of the building, and then immediately looked at those doors to see how he got in. At that time, those doors were secured. They were not propped open, they were not ajar, they were secured. Deputy Childers then goes back to her office. Something wasn't just adding up, with this guy and how he had come in, walked into the office, why he didn't come into the front door. And she said she just had a hunch, if you will, the way he was acting when he asked for a driver's license. Something just wasn't right. So she ran his license through our GCIC system that she has, and he came back as a sex offender. Immediately notified Sergeant Shane Padgett, who's in charge of the SROs. Shane Padgett, not only did she notify Shane Padgett, but she also notified the assistant principal here at the school, Dale Spencer. Childers then conducted a walkthrough at the school to ensure that all the doors were locked and that there was nobody else inside the school that was not supposed to be here. Sergeant Padgett, again, who is in charge of our SROs, or school resource officers, notified the rest of the SROs throughout our school system. He notified all the school administrators, our Uniform Patrol Division, and our criminal investigators. Our 911 center put out a BOLO, or be on the lookout for, the vehicle that this guy was driving. Uniform Patrol guys started patrolling the area, looking, kind of checking around the schools to make sure he was not in the area. Our detectives, a couple of them responded down here to the school, started the investigation. A couple of them stayed behind at the office, started running down the intel for this particular sex offender. At that time, we found that he was, in fact, on probation out of Cherokee County, that he was on probation for another sexual offense, peeping Tom, or something similar. Again, this happened around 9:30 at that time. By 10:30, our detectives had secured a warrant through state probation out of Cherokee County on him for a probation violation. By 12 o'clock, our detectives had secured a warrant for Mr. Bruce Lee Daniel Jr., who was 57 years old, that we had found in the school, for felony restrictions for a sex offender, which was for, basically his violation was for loitering in a place of a school where children were. He was also charged with a burglary, where he entered the school with intent to commit a felony. And so by 12/12 on Friday, we had secured both of those warrants in addition to the probation warrant. After reviewing the video, we found that Mr. Daniel arrived at the school and parked right in front of the school. He came up to the front doors of the school. He looked, kind of checked the front doors, and found that they were locked. At approximately 9:06, he walked down to the double doors located near the cafeteria. He then found one of those doors ajar. He entered the building and walked down the hall. He had his hands in his pockets as he looked around, walking down the hall. It looked like he was kind of checking out the doors and the classrooms as he walked down the hall. He ended up down at the gymnasium all the way at the other end of the school. I'm sure most of you know where that's at. As he gets down at the other end of the school near the gym, he walks into the bathroom. Now, if you've been down at that area, you've got a girls' bathroom and a boys' bathroom. He immediately walks into the girls' bathroom for just 1 second, and then he walks back over into the boys' bathroom. And he stood in the boys' bathroom area with his back to the wall. And one of the comments I read over the weekend was, well, there's no cameras in the bathroom, how do you know what he done? He actually stood in with his back to the wall, and you could actually see from the camera in the hall, you could see his shoes. So that's how we knew how he stood with his back to the wall in the bathroom. There was a couple of students in the bathroom. He stood there for the restroom approximately 9:09. The video looks like he walks into the girls' restroom, then he goes into the boys, stands with his back to the wall. At approximately 9:10, 2 boys entered the room. A couple of seconds later, 2 other boys walked into the room. And approximately 9:11, Mr. Daniels leaves the restroom and walks back towards the front office. Again, he's looking around, kind of watching and keeping his head down as he walks down the hall. And as he approaches right here near the front office is when he comes in contact with one of the employees here at the school who says, "Sir, what are you doing?" As soon as she saw him, it was, "Sir, what are you doing here?" And she did not know that he had just walked down this hall. She just seen him standing right there near the office area and immediately asked him what he was doing and what business he had, and then wanted to know how he got into school. So, I commend the employee who immediately confronted him and asked him what he was doing. She didn't take nothing off of him and was not going to allow him to do anything other than escort him into the office for Deputy Childers to make sure that he checked in. So a couple of other things. Again, I know, just going off of some social media issues that I've read, was talking about how the door was propped open. There was a rock in the door that had been left open. Deputy Childers actually spoke with one of the teachers that I think was upstairs during this time. From the time that this guy came into the building, one of the teachers was working upstairs. He came out and went through that door. And she remembered as she was going through the door that the door looked like it was not secured properly. She opened the door and noticed a piece of bark that was caught in the doorway there at the bottom of the door. The teacher told her that she pulled the bark out, threw it away, and closed the door, and it was secured. Sergeant Paget, after this incident had finished up and the guy was in jail, Paget went back and took a closer look at those video cameras and actually watched from about 7:15 that morning when the school buses started arriving. Again, y'all probably understand this more than I do, but the buses let the kids off down here next to those 2 double doors. Those doors were propped open when the buses come in. Those kids, there's a teacher standing there at those doors, and those kids start coming in those double doors. And believe it or not, Paget was able to point out there was a piece of bark that was about this big that was laying probably 3 or 4 feet away when those kids started coming in. And as all those kids start going through the door, that piece of bark got kicked around to the point right before the last child came through the door. That bark was in the doorway. The teacher, as she made sure the last child was in, she walks over, grabs the doors, pulls them to, and just kind of secured them from the inside. So again, the doors were not propped. They were not intentionally left open. Unfortunately, there was something in that door that was not allowing it to shut properly. So that's kind of what happened with that. Again, currently, this Bruce Lee Daniel Jr., is incarcerated in the Pickens County Jail. He was, again, we issued the warrants at 12 p.m. on Friday. He was arrested around 3 p.m. on Friday. I think originally it was reported we arrested him at his home. Our detectives, because he was a sex offender, had Dawson County actually called him into the Dawson County Sheriff's Office for a review on his paperwork, if you will. And when he came in, he was taken into custody there at Dawson County Sheriff's Office. Our detectives went over and met with him and then took custody of him, brought him over to Pickens County Jail where he was interviewed for quite some time to get his story as to what happened. I will tell you, he admitted that he was not here looking for a job. He had another story. I can't really go into detail about what his story was, but I will tell you that we're very fortunate that we've got this guy in jail. This is a guy that we do not want out in our community. We do not want him in our schools or anywhere around our children. And very, very unfortunate what happened. Had Childers not have had the feeling something wasn't right and ran him, there's no telling what could have happened later on. There's no telling what this guy would have done later on. This guy has an extensive criminal history. So, tonight one thing I want to do is point out that I am thankful that we have a Board of Education that takes our security of our children serious, because when I started 10 years ago, we had 2 campus police officers. And because of cooperation, not only with this administration, with the Board of Education, but over the years, we now have 6 SROs in our schools. And after this incident, we're going to have 7. We'll have 1 at each of our schools, including 2 at the high school. But because of the staff at this school being vigilant and seeing this guy standing in the hall, and because of Deputy Childers paying attention and knowing something wasn't right, and pulling the trigger and making sure that she ran this guy and took it serious, we've got a sex offender or what may be a predator off the street and away from our children. Had she not, we would not be standing here today. Nobody would have known what happened. So again, I hate that it happened. And again, like Carlson said, we take our schools and the safety of our children very serious. We are going to do everything we can to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Just the last year or so, we have spent a lot of time working with our schools and with active shooters. I know you guys have seen the same thing I've seen across the country over the last several years. Active shooters has been a huge topic, and I hope and pray that that's something we don't have to deal with. For the first time in my history with this county in 24 years, every single law enforcement officer in this county has the same active shooter training. Every law enforcement, not just the sheriff's office, the city, the state patrol, the probation, the parole, everybody trains together and they work together. But to go further, we have gotten into the school system and we've worked with every teacher and every administrator in every school to work with active shooter, active attack, and taking that further. Before this incident happened, we had already planned on going into every classroom, meeting with every teacher about what we can do to help secure our schools. That started this week with Coach Parker and with my chief deputy going to talk to every single teacher one-on-one on what we can do. And it's not just my job as sheriff or the SRO's job as the deputies assigned to those schools to help secure those doors in those schools. We all have to work together, whether you're a teacher or you're a parent or a student. Guys, we've got to work together to make sure that these schools are as safe as we can make them. So, without getting off on something, Carlson's going to tell you a little more about what we've done together to secure. Okay, one thing that, another thing, and Dr. Wilson reminded me, one other thing that I read was why we did not notify the parents, or why you guys didn't get notified quick enough. I will tell you on behalf of the sheriff's office, I cannot send out information immediately because of our investigation. I know the school, they're going to notify you guys, and I know they sent out information early on, very limited information. We did not share a whole lot of information in this situation with Dr. Wilson or with the school, other than the fact that there was a sex offender on campus. So when you receive certain information from the school, and then later that afternoon, you've got a lot more information that went out through the Progress and No Pickens and Fletcher News and some of these other media outlets. It was not because they were trying to withhold information. We didn't give it to them. Let me tell you why. Again, when something like this happens, our first and foremost, we are focused on the safety of the students, and once we make sure that's taken care of, the next thing we've got to do is go get the bad guy. We've got to make sure that we get, in this case, we got the sex offender, and if we put information out to y'all, and again, no disrespect, it hits social media, and then it gets back to the guy that we're looking for. This guy, he is facing, based on his sex offender violation, he's facing 30 years in prison. He's facing another, 1 to 5 to 10 years based on his burglary charge. So, 30 to 40 years, if he knows that we're looking for him, and he knows the story that was told, guys, he's not going to be there. It's going to make our job 10 times worse to try to catch him. So we purposely do not release much information, and we will keep that to a minimum. So I know it's tough, and again, as a parent, I want to know what's going on, but sometimes, guys, you just got to give us a little time. And I know it's a tough call. Dr. Wilson sent out, you guys got some information out there. But as quick as we got this guy in custody, as quick as we got a good interview, and we got all we're going to get out of him, Dr. Wilson and I were sitting in the office together. We got something written up and we released it. Did we still have a couple breakdowns? We did. Again, I apologize for that. But there's nothing intentional. We're both parents. We know how important it is to get that information out. And I can tell you, I've seen Dr. Wilson send out information and I'm sitting there saying, Doc, you need to hold off. And he'll tell you, I've got to get it out. So, it's a tough call, but again, the reason you got very limited information is because of the investigation, and we just can't release it. Another thing I've heard is I know we've had a couple of open records requests for the video, and I had a conversation with our district attorney about releasing the video on this guy wandering the halls. And that was a decision that Allison Sosby, our elected DA, discussed because of the severity of this case. That's just something that we feel we don't need to release at this time. Again, it's not like the Pittman over the guys done here a while back when we released it. That's a traffic violation case. In a dope case, this is so much different, and we just do not want to jeopardize having any issues with this case at all. So. I hope you guys will understand that.
Thank you, Sheriff. Just a couple of things I'd like to go over with some of the things that we have done the last 2 years, things that we're currently doing, and things that we plan on doing as far as safety and security of our students. First off, we have and I know I've had several volunteers to come in and do some security safety audits throughout our entire campuses. We constantly do that every year. And we've already completed a comprehensive assessment of our school system. So that's something that we do every year. 2 years ago, we had 4 school resource officers. As of this year, beginning this year, we were up to 6. And then going forward, we're going to have 7. We've also, because of school safety and security is such an important issue with us, we've assigned Coach Parker. He's still over as the athletic director for the district, but then his main area of concern is school safety and school security. So we made sure that we had somebody specifically over that area. We have spent $360,000 in new security cameras and updates to that system. We've spent $1.2 million in classroom cameras and emergency notification systems. We've got a complete new digital radio communication system on all of our buses and all of our schools. It ties directly to 911 and also to law enforcement. It also has GPS tracking on all of our buses. We have 55 new handheld radios for our schools and actually in our schools. We have completed new fencing on several of our campuses, and we'll also do more new fencing coming up. We want to make sure that every area of our schools are secure. We've added safety vestibules at several of our schools, and we're looking at adding one here also at Tate, so that when you come into the doors, you still do not have access to the school without going through the office first. We have added a welcome center at the high school. Really, it's a guard shack, but social media killed me on guard shack, and I changed it to welcome center, and nobody said a word. So we have a welcome center at the high school. And I will say the first week that we had that welcome center, we had 17 vehicles turn around and decide not to come down to school. What they were there for, anything, but they turned around and left. We're also adding card readers on all campuses where we have access to ID cards, and it makes the key process a lot easier, but also we can immediately lock down doors, and we can also tell who goes through doors and things such as that. We've added, at the high school we had a couple of classes that were outside the main building. The one that had to travel further was our weight training class. It was down in the field house. At the beginning of the school year, we brought that in-house. We redid an area and we have a new weight room in the main building. The only class that now goes outside at the high school is our ag department when they go to the barn or to the greenhouse. We just can't bring the barn inside. So they go outside with the assistance of a teacher, but all the other buildings and everything else has been brought inside the main building itself. We've also, we're relocating the baseball, softball complex to the high school. We're also relocating cross country to the high school. We want to make sure that as most of our sports, our kids do not have to leave our campus to go practice or participate in home events. Now I will say there are 3 sports that will have to leave our campus. We're not building a swimming pool for the swimming team. We're not building a golf course for the golf team, and we're not building a bass lake for our bass fishing team. So those 3 teams still have to leave our campus, but everyone else should stay on our campus, and that way I can assure that they stay safe. We do have a committee that we started about a year ago, and it consists of the sheriff, fire, EMS, 911, Jasper PD, and the school system. We've met several times already specifically about school security and safety and training. And not only have we already met several times, we meet consistently and regularly to upgrade our system and to talk about training. We've gotten very involved, just like the sheriff said, in active shooter and intruder training. And I just want to reemphasize, every law enforcement officer in Pickens County has been trained, and they've been trained in the schools. Not in theory or anything else, but actually walking the halls of our schools. So they're there and they're trained. We have trained all of our staff on intruder and active shooter. And then we also have Coach Parker and Chief Hall going to every teacher's classroom, going over with them what to do if there's an emergency or an intruder. We have been and will continue to run background checks on all volunteers that we have within our school system. We've also, I know the sheriff and I both have attended active shooter incident management training. The sheriff has sent his deputy Chief Hall to train the trainer, so we can start doing some training in-house a lot. All of our staff is also, or most of our staff has been taught Stop the Bleed. which is a critical part of that. Some of the things that we're continuing to do, all of those, we are looking at more fencing on several of our campuses. We are looking at door monitoring software. We're also looking at some software where any employee in the school system can emergency lock down that school without going through an office or picking up a phone call or anything else. So it would be an immediate lockdown, and every staff member will have that capability to do so. We're also looking at adding a safety vestibule here, and not in all the schools we don't have the software, but we will shortly have the software to be able to run license checks for all of our visitors as they come into all of our schools. Those are some of the things that we are doing. We constantly look at any things that come out, anything that can help our schools, our school system to make sure we're safe. But the number one thing is our staff. And it's our staff that has to take the responsibility to make sure those doors are closed. And our staff has to make sure the responsibility that everyone has a badge that's on inside the building. So as parents, if you come into the school, don't be offended if they ask you, where's your badge? Or make sure you go to the car to get your license. I know that we get to the point a lot of times, everybody knows everybody and all that good stuff, but we still need to run those licenses and we still need to put them on our system. So as we continue to improve, and we do take every incident extremely serious, and every time there's anything, whether it's a drill, a practice, or something that happened like it did here last week, we will take that and we'll look at every part of it and see what worked, what didn't work, and what can we improve on. Anybody have any questions? Yes, sir.
I want to try to be constructive here. I took my son to Walmart a couple nights ago, and there's a door on the side of the Walmart that's got this bar on it, it's got an alarm. He just barely brushed up against that bar, and the Walmart alarm system in the entire store starts going off. So I'm trying to understand, you're saying that these doors down here, there was no way to tell that they were ajar, that all this was defeated by a piece of bark, and we don't have any way to have an alarm system on those doors like they do at the Walmarts all across the country?
Similar to what's in the jail. The jail will let you know if there's a door open.
Well, how are your kids gonna get in the door?
One of the
You
things,
have to be let in.
now, one of the things that I have on my list is door monitoring software.
I understand, but why do we need software? I mean, Walmart's got it to Walmart.
Well-
I'm embarrassed to death. You know how kids are. I was sitting there, I was like,
Oh,
crying in my
absolutely.
face because the alarm's going off all across the store.
One of the things, and we're looking at each location, but for instance, that particular door has been used by students going to the playground every day.
Right, but you can turn it off at a certain time and then turn it back on.
And you're gonna set 500 kids from walking down the hall and barely open it, like your
You
son
know,
did in Walmart?
We're looking at alarming doors, and we're looking at the software also. And it doesn't, when I say software, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have an alarm. That is one of the things that we are looking at and hoping to put into
I'm sorry,
place.
yeah, if we have to put up with 500 kids walking past, it's a lot better than one person walking in here that has bad intent.
But then
It's
you're
better
gonna
than
give the false
200
message.
All right, okay, guys, I can promise you, we're looking into that right now. We've not had it, but it is something that is on our list to actually look at with some vendors. And we've got some scheduled to come and go over what they have. And that is one of them, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question, how come it wasn't on lockdown? Like, at what point did y'all think that someone wasn't there working with them?
We're always in a soft lockdown. And when you say lockdown, I mean,
Like, I just mean like a lockdown, I never heard that the school was in a lockdown. Normally when there's a lockdown, it's released that the kids go on a lockdown.
we're always, every school is always in a soft lockdown. And what that means there is that all the exterior doors are always supposed to be locked all the time. And,
But at night,
But that was only after the fact that we made sure that that person was no longer on campus or near this campus. That was immediately noted by our school resource officers that, and when we saw on the camera that he left the area, then there was no need to lock down the school as a total lockdown, but we did keep it in, we always did a soft lockdown. Yes, ma'am.
Were the parents of the children that walked into the bathroom notified?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
This is my concern, and I hope you understand this. This man got through a door that was ajar by a bar from one end of the school to the other end of the school without being seen, but without being stopped. Who was monitoring the cameras? This man, anything can happen in 5 minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
And we've all seen what's gone out throughout the country in schools. And I'm thankful that it didn't happen here. But from the time he walked in that door, he got to the other end of the school without being stopped.
Which takes
Who
me
is
longer than
monitoring
5
the
minutes.
cameras? That's what's upset me.
We do not have one person that constantly monitors the camera only.
The camera,
Then what's the point in having them?
Cause they're
my
not there
thing
in the
is,
office.
is that he could have had somebody else with him and we would not have known until y'all found him, got his license, and he left. He could have had somebody else with him. Y'all would not have known that until you looked at the camera because he was caught, okay? He could have had a device on him, and, I mean, I'm glad none of this happened, but my concern is, what use are the cameras if we're not monitoring and we don't know we have an intruder? Because my son even said, they were not on lockdown.
We're always on lockdown. If there's an intruder in the school or right here at it, and we already determined that he was gone, then we do lock down the entire school. And we don't let kids out of the classrooms or anything like that. But it was determined that at that point that he was off campus and was not a threat to any of our students inside the school here.
What time was that?
I'm sorry?
What time was that? Y'all determined that?
Well, as soon as we saw him leave, total campus area.
But there was a point where the kids were not allowed to go to the special classes or anything like that, that they were completely in their classroom secure.
No, sir.
Why was he allowed, why was he allowed to leave, period?
He, at the moment that he was allowed to leave, we did not know that he was here illegally.
This young lady should have took him into custody and called the sheriff.
If she had that uneasiness of feeling.
Exactly.
Well, but
That could have been any,
Why don't we have a policy of walking around the school and checking the doors after all the kids arrive?
we are, and we did, we are.
Well, you didn't that morning.
No, we did not. We did
Monday
not.
morning, the door up, the lower
We
door
did not.
down here was open. It was open this morning.
And we let parents and students drop off out here.
Is that gonna be the excuse on national news when you're burying 200 kids?
Y'all, I can lock this school down, and I can make it the safest school in the entire nation. And in doing so, we can have one door, and the only ones that come through the door are students. And that I can lock it down where no parent comes into this building.
Sounds good.
And I mean, for no reason at all. Now, I don't think parents want that because we want you part of the educational process. We could be the most welcoming school in the entire nation and have our doors wide open and let everybody come in. And nobody wants that either. So, welcoming for parents into the school, and there's a fine line. And we teeter across that line sometimes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, the parents of the children who were in the bathroom with this registered sex offender, at what point did y'all question those children about what had happened?
It was very quickly.
Okay,
after
and
the
y'all
event.
thought it was appropriate to do that without the parents?
To ask them a couple of questions, yes, ma'am.
And why were those parents not notified until 7 o'clock that night?
They should have been notified earlier.
Yeah, what's the excuse
Yes,
there?
ma'am. They should have been notified earlier. And I take full responsibility for that.
And that's great. I'm glad you take responsibility. I'm the mother of one of those children who was
I
in that
understand, and
bathroom.
I apologize for that.
And so we have no explanation as to why that was okay.
No.
Why were the parents not notified before the press release? I understand y'all don't want social media going crazy. 4 parents should have been notified.
Yes, ma'am, you're exactly right. And
Before
I
the press
apologize.
release came.
I apologize for that happening. And I have no excuse, and I apologize for that happening, and I am sorry.
The sheriffs did not interview these children until yesterday and today. Y'all have had like 4 press releases come out saying that you have all interviewed these children and nothing has happened and this and that. How do y'all know if you didn't interview those kids until today?
Our administrator talked to them. And talked to them right
And
after the event happened.
And he was trained in how to interview children and the possibility that something this bad could have happened to them?
Depending upon what they said, it would depend upon the extent of the investigation, but in talking to them, felt comfortable that absolutely nothing happened, and comfortable that that they were perfectly safe. And I apologize for you not knowing that earlier.
Okay.
I just, yeah, again, I know this could get heated, but to answer your question about the continuum of security, when I go to Hill City, I go in the office, I go in one door only, I go in the office, I get a badge every time. Unless somebody has a key, that is a security element, I want every, come in one door, go into the office, get a badge. If you're not an employee here, you don't have a key to any of the other doors, no other doors, one door for anybody that does not belong here. That, I think that continuum on the level of security, is that reasonable?
Yes, it is. Yes.
My question still hasn't been answered. This man got in the door here, got down here, and was
able to stand
there.
3 minutes before anybody noticed.
So, is there not a hall mark or anything could have happened from one end of the building to the other end of the building? How did this get in? That's what I would like to know. How did this get in? Because my son saw this man on the news, and he saw this man in the school that day. And the sheer terror of what he listened to on the news, with me sitting there with him, the look in his face, I will never forget. And I don't want to lose my son to any school violence or someone coming in here doing something to him that will either physically hurt him or mentally hurt him. Like the contact that he had with these 4 children. So I want to know how this man got from one end to the other end without being detected by anyone.
We have not had the personnel to monitor just halls. Now, I would be wide open for parental help, volunteers to help monitor the halls, or to monitor the video cameras the entire time. If anybody wants to help us with that, help us to make our schools safe, absolutely. But we have not had the personnel dedicated only for that purpose. He made it that far because most of the kids and teachers and staff were in classrooms during that time period. They were not out in the hall.
I think the only way to fix what you're talking about would be similar to what we're doing at the jail and at the courthouse. We have what's called a central control. We have one person dedicated, and we use the courthouse for an instance. At the courthouse, when you come in, anybody coming in or leaving to any door, any area, we have one person watching all cameras all the time. Those doors are open at the courthouse. I have a guy running what's called central control. He's watching the doors, he's watching all the cameras, and watching all the movement. And the only way, I think, Carlson, would be to have an area set aside so we have a dedicated person watching those, watching those cameras.
It's worth our taxpayer money to do that, to keep our children safe, if we're gonna have all the technology.
It would not require a certified deputy, or we could hire a civilian person. And again, we do the same thing at the courthouse. We've got a civilian that does that for us.
And one thing, I respect that you're trying to get community involvement, but even that, then the parents and volunteer have to go through a background check, right?
Right.
But tell me, sir, Officer, Sheriff, you would know, how often are those side doors with the alarms at Walmart getting defeated?
I would be aware at Walmart, but it's not that often, I wouldn't think. I mean, you know, if you hit those alarms, like you said, it's going off.
It is so simple. It doesn't require computer programming or anything. It is like a fire alarm at any sort of, it is designed to get everybody's attention. If it's a theater, a restaurant, a retail center, whatever it is, you're trying to get everybody's attention in the entire building, and all it is an alarm on the door.
But if the bar had been blocking that door, then the alarm would have gone off.
It's as long as where the door is
Anything
open.
can fail. And we're all human.
I could tell you, and I remember, again, I'm gonna go back probably 4 years ago, we done a security assessment. We went into, several of the schools, several of the doors were open. They had all kinds of different, at the high school, for instance. I mean, I can remember when we could, walk in any door in the back, behind the high school, you could pull around and go in any door, anywhere. And I know we still have issues, but guys, I'm telling you, it still ain't good enough. I get it, but there has been a lot of security measures put in place. We've come a long way. Are we there yet? Absolutely not. But again, I think if we can work together and figure out a way to develop, and we talked about it at the high school, if we could develop a central control area in these schools. You know, Carlson has already talked about having the cameras in all these classrooms. You know, where something happens, not only can the schools and the SROs see what's going on in the classroom if you have an issue. Our deputies now have the computers in the cars that will be able eventually to see what's going on immediately. Again, have those central controls set up so we can monitor some of those operations and see what's happening.
Sheriff, if you would indulge me, I have a two-part question, one for each one of you. You're under contract with the Board of Education for so much monetary value to provide security to our school campuses, correct?
We provide, yes, we have a contract with the school to provide SROs.
Can you let us know how much the contract is worth?
We provide right now 6 SROs to the school. They reimburse us for 70% of 5 of those. We fund 100% of number 6.
Okay.
We haven't discussed what we're gonna do on the 7th. Currently, as he mentioned a while ago, we're paying overtime to make sure that other school is covered.
Now, Dr. Wilson, you had mentioned that this door down here is a must on intake and outtake of students and staff here, correct? I mean, you're agreeing with me?
That is what has been in the past, yes.
So, if this door and that door is not visible between each other, how can that female deputy secure that entrance? There needs to be 2 deputies, or that door needs to be closed. If you can convince me otherwise, I'm all in.
I don't think it necessarily has to be a deputy. I think if you've got somebody in the mornings, as those kids are coming in, to make sure who's coming in and who's coming out, that can help monitor that, whether it be a teacher or somebody.
We do. We have staff for bus duty and car rider duty.
Unarmed, defenseless staff.
Yes, yes.
Now, what would be the legalities of having some armed school staff here, say the principal, the vice principal? What would it take to get that done?
We've actually been discussing that for.
Yeah. That is a strong possibility in the very near future. Yes, ma'am.
My daughter is a singer. I got 3 kids. I've been here for a long time. Each one went to this school. My youngest is 10. There's been many times I've walked down these halls and I have faced someone or smiled at a teacher. Hey, how are you and how you doing? Going back to her question, how did not one person, you get from one end to the other end, for not one person being suspicious? I mean, that should have been, someone should have, hey, there's a guy walking down the hall, is that a visitor? Because, when you have visitors at lunchtime or social events, I mean, how do you not, see that suspicious? But, I understand going forward, it takes a community to build a village. And I hope that our teachers take this one serious now. And it takes
course, it's one of those things that, yeah, we gotta do better with. We have to do better. I mean, how he made it all the way down there without being confronted,
He must have been sprinting, because I can't even make it down there in 5 minutes.
he was in the entire,
He was moving
He
on
had
pretty
to
good,
be
especially
moving.
on his way out.
Because I remember my son was in kindergarten, and you're looking at it.
He's a professional criminal.
Yeah. Obviously, I said,
Yeah, you know, that's his job,
That's what I said.
to be able to sneak around and do this kind of stuff.
And that should be suspicious if he's looking in the bathroom.
Sheriff, could you indulge me with, if parents want to volunteer, if they have past misdemeanor convictions, what would disqualify anybody in our community from volunteering to be on campus and help us schools?
of course, mostly anything would be domestic violence, drug usage, any kind of violent crime at all. If it's a minor misdemeanor, we would look at each one of those individually. If it was a bad check or something like that, that we might not let them work in the lunchroom with the money, but other than that, but it would depend on what the circumstances were.
Well, I'm being serious. I work here in town and real close to the school, and I have put several of my kids through this kind of school, and I have had nothing but the utmost respect of teachers and administration and everything. I'm willing to give up my hour of lunchtime to come up here and sit and watch cameras.
I would love to have every parent that could volunteer in the school, because it does a couple of things. Not only does it make our school safer, but it also sends a message to all the kids that parents take education very serious. And we will never be the school system that you or I want it to be unless parents are involved. And that's the
And it's
entire
gonna send a
spectrum.
message to the rest of the community that we care about what we're doing, and we're gonna get involved.
Absolutely.
Well, can you send out a memo or something to make it easier for the parents who do work here in town? They have to maintain a job. If they wanna
Yes.
volunteer to watch the cameras for 30 minutes, for an hour, or however long that they can, so that they can do so without having a lot of hoops to jump through.
What we'll,
Easier, quicker for our children's safety.
absolutely, what we will do is we'll set up a couple of parent meetings. We'll have one in the evening, one in the morning, so that it accommodates times. We'll do that through Destiny. We'll send out that notice, and we'll get it in all the media, social medias, because that one seems to be a really good one. And then we'll come in and lay out the entire program.
How about a 6 to 7-year-old grandmother on the county, you take her?
Absolutely. Where's my cane? Yes. Yes. Yes, ma'am. We would. We'd love to. We'll do that after spring break, if you don't mind. Yes, ma'am.
Prior to this incident, was there an SOP or policy for handling unexplained visitors in the schools for the SROs? Was there, did you guys have something laid out already for how you?
Specifically, Jane, am I missing something there? I don't know that it specifically addresses that particular incident.
I mean, was there an SOP for unexplained visitors? There is, was that followed? So by letting them go, that was followed to the SOP.
Well, again, I want to remind you that
When we let him go, he was still, and we at that moment had no doubt that he was possibly here as an applicant for a custodial job. Now, if you also notice, we have a sign right outside the door now where we're hiring substitute teachers through ESS.
That is not even in Pickens County. That's not even in Pickens County. It's like in Rome and Calhoun and everything. That's not even in Pickens County. That sign needs to be taken down. That ESS.com?
That's us.
No, it's not.
That's our.
That's for like a substitute teacher.
It is.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, but it's not in Pickens County at this moment.
We use ESS for our sub. We sub out with them.
They're not hiring right now in Pickens County.
I'm sorry?
They're not hiring right now in Pickens County.
There's nothing on there.
Well, then we need to take that sign down.
Yes.
Because we're only hiring for Pickens County. But I'm just saying though, we do have people come in to our schools and ask about custodial jobs.
Right.
And at that moment, that's what it appeared, and it just felt a little wrong. But we didn't have anything to the contrary at that moment until, and then he left. So, I mean, we didn't know.
What's the time frame between taking the photocopy of his ID and the actual call in to run his information? How long of a time frame?
Okay, that I don't know. But to go back to the first part of your question, I don't think Deputy Childers knew that she did not know he was on the campus and had wandered down the hall. All she knew was that an employee had confronted him and said, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he indicated that he had just came in and was looking for a job. So when she escorted him into the office, she had him sign in. She talked to him about this supposed job and then took his information.
Is there an expiration on the open air? I've made one for him, but I would like to see the video. I was told about the district attorney thing.
Right?
Once the investigation is over, do I have to resubmit that request? Or does this one that I've already submitted, is it stand?
I'm sure it'll stand, but we'll just have to figure out, and it may be a while on the investigation and when it goes to trial. The big issue is that we don't get this video out on social media and out to the public before this case goes to trial.
Sheriff, is there any way you yourself can change SOP?
For the sheriff's office?
Yeah,
Yes.
for our resource officer. Can we change it to where if you are caught on campus circumventing security, you are immediately detained? There is no question, there is no letting you go. If you don't go through the right channels and come through the front door, you will be detained until you yourself says let him go.
Schools are target issue.
Absolutely. Well, I can change the policy that says that if we find somebody on campus that has not followed protocol,
Correct.
then we can detain them until we verify what they're doing and where they come from.
It's not against the law.
And that's something we'll look at immediately.
Okay, I waited a long time, I've got one more thing. Friday, a man named Tony told me at the investigation, it was propped up.
That what?
That the door was propped up when he locked.
That was the first thing that we heard before it was verified.
Monday, Ms. Hall, who I am absolutely, completely supportive of, I'm not upset with her, I'm not upset with anybody in this school, unless they know. Ms. Hall told me that there was a maintenance issue, and that she was here all weekend trying to get it fixed. And now, we're told there was a piece of garbage.
All right, I've not spoke to Tony or Miss Hall, so I'm not aware of those issues. All I know of is the video that I've watched that Shane shared with me about the bark being in the door. And I've also talked with Deputy Childers, who spoke with the teacher that said she removed a piece of bark.
In looking at the video to start with, without going through what Sergeant Paget did, it appeared the door just did not close properly. And we assumed at that moment that it was the hydraulics on the door. And that was the reason we assumed that it did not close the way it should have closed, because we didn't notice that little piece of bark that had gotten in there. So at that point, it was a mechanical malfunction is what we assumed it to be until we verified that it was not. Yes, sir.
Yes, I was wondering if y'all thought about y'all's early program in the gym. How many teachers do you have watching the kids in the morning? Because the door's wide open.
Yeah, that day after school, that was changed. When I went to pick up Riley, like at 5:30, the door was locked. She was looking for me and letting me in. Because I opened the door and she's like, "Oh, it's locked, but I'm gonna let y'all in." So it was locked this afternoon.
I was saying in the morning, the doors at the gym for kids to get dropped off early, that door wide open, there's 100 kids there. You know, I just didn't know if the teachers could watch everybody, you know, without someone being in the front, watching that door. When I came up there, there wasn't even no teacher out there, so.
Mr. Woodson?
When was that?
When I first drove my daughter here, first week of school, then I started getting her on the bus, but I think that it changed since then.
You could have an active shooter come in the morning, hide in the building, in the janitorial office, or up under a desk or whatever, and wait for all the parents and the students to do what they're gonna do. Come out and open up. We've seen it happen in our country before.
I just saying because, you know, when I first, brought my daughter here, I could have been anybody walk right into the school and, that door's wide open in the morning.
I've got a feeling that's fixing to change.
It is. It is.
There's also a huge problem with the gate down there. That gate needs to be reconstructed. And what I've seen is people leave the gate open because it's such a pain in the butt to go in there with the pole the way it is. That whole part of the fence needs to be reconstructed.
We're looking at all the fencing here.
So are y'all gonna, do anything about that, the door being wide open in the morning after what's going on?
Absolutely.
In the morning in the gym?
Yeah, the afternoon.
I didn't see a deputy when I come up the restaurant.
And I can assure you that when anything like this occurs, like I said earlier, whether it's a drill or something real life like this one occurred, we do start looking at everything and reevaluating everything. And from that, we make changes. And the good thing is that from this, we will make a number of changes and become more secure and more vigilant on making sure security is top priority. All our staff.
Can you give us a timeline, like at least 2 weeks out, you will release a report on what you've learned tonight from this meeting and, course of action? I just want to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks, right? Once we get a timeline on this?
Sure. Well, obviously, it's not gonna be overnight, it's gonna take.
That's why I said a couple weeks from now, I think you know, digest.
I'm going to take spring break off, if you don't mind. But after that, then yes. And I have, I'll hold 2 or 3 come chat with the superintendent meetings throughout the year. And last time I think I had maybe 10 people show up. But at any point, you don't have to wait for a report. Come to my office. Let's talk about it. Ask me, where do we stand on this? If you don't see something happen, come see me. Call me. But yes, I'll get the timeline out for you. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, first of all, I want to encourage all of you, before you ask a question, think about what's already been answered, because I feel like we're touching the same thing over. And then I want to say this, in 1997, I walked my little boy through those doors for the first time. Because of the difference in age of my children, last year was my last year. I was a Tate parent for 20 years. 20 years, longer than anybody else has ever been a Tate parent, and I'm proud of it. I'm still a Tater. You were here with me. Yes, Ms. Rucker was here with me. But let me say this. After September the 11th, 2001, I was not able to walk through that front door, even though I went to church with the people in the office, and I still call most of the people who were here then and now my friends. I could not walk through that door without being stopped, directed to the office, and given a name tag. So, for this false sense of abandonment on their part, let me just say, these people here in this school have done their job. This is one incident, and yes, it should have not happened, but I feel confident that the steps that are being taken today will prevent that from happening again. And I said all that to say this, and I'm not better than anybody, I'm the least of anybody, but let me say this. We, Monica and I, have been to every school meeting, every town hall meeting this year. I've seen none of you there. Destiny, will you raise your hand, honey? She has reached out through social media, through phone messages, and through every type of media imaginable, begging parents to come and have their voices heard. If security has been one of your concerns, it shouldn't have taken a sex offender walking through these doors and making their way down the hall. Because
somebody might be fired, is what really should
Okay,
happen.
all right, let's calm down. Hold it.
You can't
Come on,
fire
let's
hard.
stay.
Let me and I'm telling you, I'm as fired up too. When they said that they were in the room with 4 students, my heart sank. That is inexcusable. It is. But like I said, we're revisiting the same things over and over. The sheriff of the county showed up today or yesterday was his birthday. He's here with us to talk this out. And there's a difference between talking and complaining. If we want results, we have to come to this together. I mean, and I know all of you, and I've been there. I've been a single mom. I wasn't able to come to every meeting that I wanted to come to. I understand that. But find a mom or an aunt who's retired to go in your stead. Stephanie, when is our next meeting? The 14th?
Stephanie.
Jessica, I'm sorry. I believe it's,
15th.
The 15th. If all of you would show up to that, that would be fantastic, because I promise you, once you hear what's going on in those smaller meetings, you'll feel more at ease about when things like this happen. You'll know that people who are taking care of your children when you're not there. And I know as a mom, to me, that's the most important thing. My daughter has to give everybody she sees at Tate a hug because they make her feel like family, and to me that's important. And I can promise you this, I don't know anything that happened here Friday as far as the names or whatever, but I can assure you, if one of those children had been harmed in any way, that man wouldn't have made it out that door. He would not have made it out that door.
Yeah, you really.
No, and if they really
We
care
know
about those children, I would have been notified before 7
Okay,
o'clock.
guys,
We're going over the
let's,
same things over and
so
over.
everybody calm down.
And it's happened, and like I said, it's happened, it's awful, and I'm aggressive, y'all wanna make sure it never happens again. And you had the best idea there was, one door, one way in, one way out, and it should be that way with all of them.
security, the jail's that way.
Exactly, and he's agreed to do that, and I think that's made, and the fact that you said we're gonna change that right now, if somebody comes in and they don't have that visitor badge, hold them until we find out why they're there. That's all it's gonna take. Problem solved. Can we go back and change what happened Friday? No, we wish we could, but let's look at it this way too. This has been a learning experience. Without that happening, we all wouldn't be here together, coming up with the solutions to make sure it never happens again.
Yes, sir.
I understand, this is a subject me and Dr. Wilson have talked about, some of you know me. Some of you know me, some of Tate knows me. I've had this discussion with Dr. Will. This is a topic that's very near and dear to me. I was a kidnapped kid from school in 1980. And I want to tell you, thank y'all. We can bash them, but they have already done. I was checked out of school by somebody that should have never checked me out. So from there till now, you can't get your kid unless you're on the list. You can't just come and get them. They fight against that. They're up against that. The progress that's been made already, I thank you. The incident that just took place, I hate it. Trust me, it's in my guts. Because I was molested as a child. I know what this is. This incident is bad, but I can tell you they're on it. I can tell you that it's took their sleep, it's took their family life, it's took it apart. Because now they're having to fight something that they hated that it happened, yeah. I tell you right now, it's got their utmost attention, and they're going to fight every way they can to fix it. And either we can support these men and these deputies, or we can crucify them. I'm going to support them, and I'm going to back them. I've got 4 children. 2 of them, one of them has been through this school. One of them is currently in this school. And I can tell you for a fact, yes, I'm appalled at what happened. But I can tell you now, if we can holler and blame and just point fingers, but nothing happened. And I thank Almighty God that nothing has happened.
Respectfully.
My prayers around this school has been done. The prayers that I prayed around the school.
Because I owe you an apology. If you think that I crucified you tonight, I apologize. Do you think you've been crucified?
Wait. I want to say that, it's easy. I sit here, I pastor a church, and it's easy for me to sit here and interrupt. But I raised my hand until I couldn't hold it up more, and I changed it again. You know, I was taught a thing that, listen, I respect what y'all do. I respect the hours that you put in. I respect the privacy, Sheriff, that you have, and the obligation, the responsibility that you have. I respect it. I see your deputies. I always thank them for what they do for our children, day in and day out, putting their lives on the line for a whole lot less money than I would do it for, and I thank you. But I can tell you this, and listen, it's going to take every one of us in here. Y'all, these parents, listen, I don't know these teachers, I don't. I didn't know this all. I send my children in faith to believe they're going to take care of it.
Amen.
I do. I send them in faith to believe they're going to take care of it. I've got in here and I've got involved. I walk in this school, every teacher in here knows me. They know my wife when she battled cancer, and they picked my wife up. They were there for us and our family. But I will tell you this, that these teachers are very diligent in what they do. This instant, one instant, does not define this county, this administration, or this school. They are proud of what they do. They work hard at what they do. None of them should be fired. What this will do is what it did for me. It got people to set laws in place to protect children like me. And I'm glad to know that, you know what, you're going to handle this. And I've talked to you, and we've talked before, and I look forward to what's coming. Because why? Because this happened, this bad didn't happen. Trust me. But I'll tell you this, I look forward to what's going to happen. I look forward to what's going to happen because I know that they're going to fix it. I ask you as a community, let's support. I'll volunteer. I work third shift. I work third shift, and I get off in the daytime. I can give up going home and going to bed to come up here and be a part of these children's lives. Because you know what? I want to be an example in front of all children. To tell them, I don't know what children go home to, but I know what I went home to. I know when I was kidnapped the first time, I was taken from my home in the middle of the night, strapped to a motorcycle, and took to Oklahoma City. And then I was took back. My mom walked into school, grabbed a hold of me, and took me out. No one ever questioned her. No one ever knew I was gone until I was gone. That can't happen anymore today in the country we live in today. And I'm glad for that. Thank y'all for what you do. I appreciate it.
No, sir, I do not feel like I've been crucified. I will say, the parents that upset me and have upset me the most throughout my administrative career is the parents that I never hear from. Parents that don't care enough to come and voice an opinion. Those are the parents that upset me. I don't get upset when a parent comes in and is very emotional about their child, because you should be the number one protector and advocate for your child. And so I welcome you at all times. Sometimes I might wish that it might not be so loud, but I do not apologize for the way you feel about your child, because I do appreciate how you do feel about your child. Like I said, we have a number of parents in our community that really don't care about their kids. And those are the ones that upset me more than anything else. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I just have two ideas I'd like to propose. One is, I have seen the TV screen in the office when I'm signing in and whatnot. It shows one camera at a time for a few seconds, moves to the next camera, and it takes a while to cycle all the way through. Now, a friend of mine told me that at Hill City, they have two big TV screens that's got 4 of the cameras showing at once. So that's 8 camera views at one time. It would have been possibly easier to have noticed from the office staff somebody lurking in the halls if there was more camera views at one time going.
Yes.
Is that something
Yes.
that might possibly be
Yes.
an easier, quick fix until we get the rest of the stuff into play?
Absolutely.
And then the other thing is about the early drop-offs in the morning. I got to thinking about this too, especially if we could get like a parents volunteer or something like that. have somebody stand outside and pass a clipboard to the parent so they can sign their child in, and then give it back, and then the parent never gets out of the car. The kids can go straight in, and the parent never has to, or any unwanted person would never have to enter the school at all. As a food for thought, again, to help with that situation as well.
Thank you.
Or you could take that before school away, because we don't have the staff for it. We don't have the means to get more staff for it. It's not mandatory. I mean, how many parents depend on it though? Everybody's easy to jump on, what are we gonna do about
How many
this?
kids do y'all actually have in that program? Quite a bit.
I don't work here. My kids don't go to school here, because there is a ton.
I'm gonna volunteer, I just wanna be hours.
And they're not a lot.
But if you take that away, the kids are the ones who suffer.
Yeah, exactly. That's one issue when I was growing up, was my mother
Well,
was working
I mean,
3 hours.
we don't wanna open the door and let them in. So we're trying to figure
Well,
out a solution
we're
that would
gonna-
make better sense than
We
to do
will,
that.
we will. Yes, ma'am.
I want to say that I went to school here myself since kindergarten, all through 7th grade. I had 6 kids that attended school here. I have one that's going to attend here next year. Over the years of basically my life, my first kid started here 24 years ago. So I have been to this school, I won't say, but well, yeah, it's been like 40-something years. But I have seen many improvements in this school. Anytime I ever come to this school, I can never get any of these indoors. They're always locked. There's only one front door that you can come in, usually the one to the right doesn't open, or the right does, the left doesn't. Now you have to buzz a buzzer to get in. As soon as I walk in that door, and I've been doing it for 40-something years, I still get told every time, well, let's see, you need to come by the office and sign in. It's frustrating at times because I feel like I own the school. Kidding, but they do it. As far as the drop off at the school, anytime I've had to drop a kid off this year down there, or last year down there, no, this year down there, there's always have been, for me, always somebody's at the door with the sign-in sheet, and then usually it's Miss Hazel standing at the door that goes toward the bathroom. So somebody's usually at each door whenever I come by here. I've seen many.
Do you have a question?
I'm defending the school, and that's my privilege to do that.
Oh, okay.
I'm just not the one complaining, so it's okay to sometimes come and say positive things, and I 110% support our principal. She's done a great job. We didn't have cameras in here till this year. I'm just saying that people feel like our school's not secure enough, and of course, there's always room for improvement. I'm not disagreeing with that, and what happened was horrible. I'm not disagreeing with that, but I'm just saying, they have been many, many improvements, and there have been many different safety issues put in place.
There has, but there's more that need to be done, and we will. Yes, ma'am.
Do you take job applications here?
Do we take job applications here?
Yeah, are job applications taken? Because if they are, I think that there should be a policy change that they're not, so that.
We don't.
Okay, they're not taken out of school.
Board of Education office.
No.
Okay.
So we can put a sign out the door immediately, no job applications accepted at this location.
Most people know that.
We could, yes.
He wasn't here to get a job. It's not.
Yeah, he was here.
Already established.
The lady behind you first. No.
Taking, as a parent, taking consideration of steps forward, I felt better knowing that they got him off the premises, doing what they were doing, taking his license information down, and getting him off the premises ASAP. Because not knowing, maybe not knowing, she may know what to do, but detaining someone, that can turn ugly real quick. But I felt better as a parent that they did the right thing, got the license, she investigated it, and got them off the premises as soon as possible. I feel safer as a parent, my child being here, that they needed it the way they did.
Agreed.
Mr. Lee?
Got a question specifically for the sheriff. Are all of your school resource officers equally trained? FTO trained specifically?
They are all certified. They are, I've got one that is still going through, FTO. It needs to go through FTO.
So not every school resource officer is qualified to be on the road as a deputy.
I've got one that has not been through FTO, that is
Essentially,
correct.
Ms. Caitlin Ingram, correct?
I've got one that has not been through FTO.
The last question I have for you, Sheriff, is former deputy of yours offered to donate free canines to be used on our school campuses, and you refused. Can you tell me why?
Well, first of all, I don't know about free, but I did have, Mr. Tucker in the back that agreed to donate, another canine. The last one that was donated, I just recently retired. I chose to, take a donation from our Explorer, or our auxiliary, and they purchased a canine that will be out on the road very soon.
Thank you, Sheriff.
That canine will not be assigned back to the high school like the last one, but will be out on the road, available for uniform patrol, CID, drug task force, as well as our schools.
Any other questions?
My question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My question is that all the students, when everybody starts doing what they say they're gonna do, when everybody gets stopped in front door and not open, all that's gonna start pressing. So I can't do anything in my school. Kids feel like they do it hard. Take time to do what you gotta do.
Got one last question for you, if you would.
Sure.
Is there any abundant operating budget that can be immediately used to secure the entrance of this school? I'm talking about, get a contractor in here and within a
This
month.
is sort of stuff. I had somebody out, it was, today or yesterday.
The funds are available.
Yes, and we're gonna proceed with that very shortly.
Thank you.
But we gotta make sure that we do it correctly because of the, scarcity of the school. Yes, sir.
Do you have any further information about the Tate incident in the high school cafeteria last week?
As we've had, is Mr. Wallace still here? Where is he at? He left. Y'all, this is another whole story I could spend a couple hours on. In the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, we've had, how many today? At the high school, probably 20. And we've had, in the last week or two, we've had to call medical attention. We had to do that 3 today, plus one last week. Vaping is a huge problem. One of the problems with vaping is that we have a number of parents that disagree with us on that and actually provide vapes and things for their kids. It is such a hard thing to detect. If there's an incident that occurs, we do punish children for having vaping devices and vaping. But let me also make the statement that once they have done their punishment, and their punishment is over with, then they can return to regular activities at the school. I've got some people that are upset because some of the kids are coming back and doing extracurricular activities after being punished. During the punishment, they cannot participate at all. But after their punishment, they can. But it's not specifically, I don't know if I've answered your question.
I just knew the one that happened last week, that she had the seizure in the lunchroom. Is she recovering, or is she still?
Actually, that she is back. I mean, she has recovered. We did take her. We transported her to a hospital, and
did she know that her vape use was laced with that narcotic?
That I'm not sure. That I really don't know for sure. Vaping is a huge issue. And even if you look at the statistics out there from the not attorney general, our health person, I'm gonna blank on his name, but
one of the big issues with vape is the synthetic vapes that these kids are getting a hold of. And a lot of those are now being classified as a Schedule I drug. And the problem is that we have no field test available to us to test those. So if we catch a student with a vape, all we see is the liquid. We don't know if it's the regular vape or nicotine or what's in it. So it's hard for us to charge that as a Schedule I. We send that to the lab. The turnaround from the lab is normally going to be, it could be 3-4 months because of backlog with the crime lab. Once we determined that, one of the big things out there right now is Kentucky Root. That's one of the things that we're seeing that the kids have used is came back after months as a Schedule I narcotic. Now, once that's determined as a Schedule I narcotic, the people that make this will change that chemical makeup just enough so when we send it to the lab, it's got a different chemical makeup. So now we have to go through that whole process again. And it's a huge battle, and we're working very closely with several cases. One that you mentioned, we've got another one, from probably 2 weeks prior to that we're getting a rush done at the crime labs and get some results back. We're working closely with our detectives as well as our drug task force, and hopefully you guys are going to see some changes out in our community very soon with some of that.
Yes, ma'am.
One other question. I just recently had foot surgery at the beginning of the year, and no, I wasn't in a wheelchair or anything, but this school is growing. We having more, the way this county's redistricted and everything. At some point in time, there might be a parent or a visitor who has a reason to be here that's gonna need to come into the school that is in a wheelchair. They can't come up these steps, and I understand making it so that way everybody has to go through that door and it's secure. Can we put some kind of speaker or phone down at that door? So then that way a staff personnel can manually walk to that door and escort them.
Yes.
Another thing I want to mention, I know we're probably, I don't know when Carlson's going to wrap things up, but anybody that would like to stay after, if you didn't want to raise your hand, you didn't want to ask a question in public, I will be here until the last person leaves. If you want to meet with me or any of the staff one-on-one to talk about any issues you may have, I'll be glad to stay as long as you want to be here. I'm sure if Dr. Wilson will be here, it's the same, or at least he will now, right?
Yeah.
Seriously, we'll be here as long as you guys want to be here.
And I will tell you, no, I don't have a perfect memory, but all the things you've suggested, I do have a couple of people writing those down. So just don't think I'm ignoring you and saying, yes, we can do that, or yes, we'll look at that, because we will, because they'll remind me what you said.
At least we got the newspapers there for you.
Oh, absolutely, yes. They'll definitely remind me. Are there any other questions? Thank you. Yes, sir.
I have one more. I'm sorry, I hope I didn't come off as too harsh on y'all, but I was kind of hot coming in here. But I want to thank y'all for at least standing up here. I think there's probably another set of people that should be up here, because this guy should have never been on the streets, from what I can tell, from the criminal history both in Florida and here. And there's probably some prosecutors and judges that need to be standing up there alongside you, maybe some parole board members. Some other people, and at least thank you for standing up, because this could have been so much worse, and y'all did at least come in here to, take the heat, and whereas other people probably should be with you.
Well, again, we don't mind taking the heat. We're not perfect. We make mistakes, and we realize from the incident that happened that there's things that we can do a little different, hopefully to make things better. again, the biggest thing that I want you guys to understand is we do care. We care about the children, and we wouldn't be doing what we're doing. The deputies that we have that are here tonight are not here because they had to be here, but they care. And those that we have chosen to be in the schools and to work closely with your kids, it's not an assignment that we said, hey, Caitlin, I want you to go work with the kids. Was something that we worked together, that they wanted, and they put in for the job, and they had a passion to work with those children. They went through mandate, and then this is the job that they wanted to work. So, you know, we've got some of the best people in our office assigned to the schools. Again, it's not something that I said, Shane, you know, you've got to go do it. Well, maybe Shane's case is a little different because he had worked in the schools before and he has kids. But, you know, we take it serious, and we love what we do. We appreciate the opportunity we've had to work with your children and with the schools and with our school system. Carlson and I went over not long ago with Rick Jaspers. He is assigned to work closely with some of the school safety there at the Dome, and we sat in a meeting probably with 15, 20 other school systems with the sheriffs and with the school superintendents talking about school safety. Guys, we have the best relationship, and some people looks at that as not a good thing, but for us, we have the best relationship between the sheriff's office and the Board of Education of any county, anywhere around us. You know, if we see a need and we work together and we fill it. You know, it's not all about having these deputies in the schools. It's about having, you know, when something happens and they make that phone call, we drop everything we're doing to respond to these schools, whether it's having our criminal investigators respond at 2 o'clock in the morning because some kid has made some threat to shoot up the school in the morning. We'll work all night. And I say we, myself, my chief deputy, my command staff, whatever it takes. We are going to do whatever we have to do to make sure that our children are safe, these schools are safe. We work with our inmate work detail to pick up trash at the end of the ball games, to, you know, whatever we've got to do. You know, if I'm working at the jail and I have a heat and air system go out, I don't have to call a contractor somewhere to come fix my heat and air system. I call a man sitting right down here that is in charge of maintenance for the school systems. He sends his folks over to help me. As long as we're working together and saving tax dollars, then we can put that money to use somewhere else to build, you know, something out here, to secure a door somewhere else. So, not very many systems are fortunate to have the relationship that we have, and I'm very thankful for Dr. Wilson and the staff that he has. So, again, we'll be here if you guys need anything.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to ask if the contractors that work around the schools, are their workers background checked? Like the ones that come to pick up the garbage or the ones that do maintenance?
Yes, ma'am. That's part of the bid process and everything, is that they are background checked. We do have one other program that I didn't tell you about that, and I have to remind our deputies a lot of the times, but if a deputy's on patrol or anything, all they gotta do is stop and come into any school, go have lunch with any of the schools, and we provide that for them also. Just to have more deputies in the school, just to have students seeing deputies at a different level. I mean, here at school, instead of, you know, some of them don't see them in great lights, sometimes at home on weekends, but just to build those relationships and also to have more deputies in our school system. Any other questions? All right, thank you for coming.